All right, Thor, here we go. Day 2. We told everyone that we were going to be back. We would not lie to you all. Kendall Valenzuela, Thor Nystrom here with you, breaking down everything that Thor has seen so far from the combine. Boots on the ground. He is live over there in Indianapolis. Thor, how's it going? How you doing?
It's going well. We had the epic day of the quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers testing today. We saw some very good performances. We saw a couple performances that weren't quite as good as what we were expecting. So I'm excited to talk about all that with you, Kendall.
Oh, it'll be fun. And you're still in your new era stuff, I see, and I'm still Thor. I have to say jealous about it, but it's fine. I'll talk to them afterwards. But I'm jealous. Everyone should be jealous, and your hashtag is Run the Authority. So there you go.
I haven't taken it off yet. The second I got it, it became the most comfortable stuff in my wardrobe. So I don't know when I'm going to take it off.
All right, I love it. Again, everyone, make sure you're following him at ThorKU over there on Twitter. You all already know we retweeted this, so make sure you're giving him a follow over there. And go check out fantasylife.com for all our latest articles. Sign up for the newsletter while you are there, 100% free. Thor, we've got a lot to talk about today, so let's just dive right in. Let's start with the first part here in being the quarterbacks and talking about the quarterbacks here not participating. Two guys that we kind of already knew and talked about, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. We can start with Sanders, though. I still want your breakdown of him. This is something where when you and I have talked about this before, we said there's not much more for him to prove. Seems like the same thing with Cam Ward, but what kind of are your takeaways for Shedeur Sanders? Do you think he can legitimately turn around a franchise that drafts him in the next few months?
For sure. My only thoughts on Shedeur Sanders here, I loved his podium session. He gets guff every time he opens his mouth. I tended to agree with most of the things that he was saying. He did turn around multiple programs in college. He has had success ever since he started throwing a football. I appreciated what he said. I liked the confidence. Other guys say the same stuff and they don't get the same negative reaction. So I like Shedeur Sanders' his time with the media. And we'll see him throw in Boulder. But like we've talked about before, you want to see a throwing session, turn on that tape.
Let's go to Cam Ward. Feels like the same thing, Thor. I know we've talked about him a lot, and it feels like he is the consensus QB1 on most people's boards, maybe besides yourself. And again, everyone can go and check out your mock drafts at fantasylife.com. But is that kind of the sense? Is that kind of what you're getting and gathering, looking at Cam Ward and hearing everything that you did this week?
Yeah, I mean, with him sitting in the pole position right now at QB1, as far as the consensus goes, you don't have to do anything. So Cam Ward did the expected thing and shut it down here. And again, to me, it's a nothing burger. We're going to see him throwing Coral Gables, but we've seen that kid throw plenty in college. He holds the all-time record for touchdown passes in Division I football. I've seen that kid throw enough. So to me, that not a big deal.
Is he still your number 2 though? Like for you, when you're doing your mock drafts, is it still Shedeur Sanders for you, QB1?
Well, in my rankings, yeah, and that's how it's going to end. Yeah, with Shedeur QB1 and Cam Ward QB2.
All right, let's continue on here through the quarterbacks, though, and going through Jackson Dart, who has, his stock, Thor. It feels like since we've started doing these shows and started talking about Jackson Dart, feels like there's been a rise ever since the Senior Bowl. So what have you seen from him that has made him kind of rise and get a little bit better draft stock in the last few weeks?
Well, I mean, he had the solid performance at the Senior Bowl, particularly in comparison to Jaylen Milroe, who are the two highest profile guys that were going down there. You got some steam out of that. As far as here at the combine, the throwing session and stuff like that, we'll end up seeing. But I mean, he's been fine here. We didn't get the athletic test with Dart, it looks like, but he's doing fine.
And but his stock really is rising. Where would you put him besides, we know the consensus top 2, Shedeur Sanders and then Cam Ward, like we just talked about. Is he your number 3 right now?
Yeah, he is. And I don't think it's as much what he's doing as what the quarterbacks around him are not doing. That, again, Jaylen Milroe, you go to the Senior Bowl, those two guys in the consensus rankings were right there with each other. Dart has the decent week. Milroe has the terrible week. And Milroe, I don't know what he is doing during this pre-draft process. I'm sure we'll get into him in a second, but the fact that he continues to sort of fall off, it has just created this distance between the two. And in a draft where you only have 2 quarterbacks that are for sure day one starters, the QB3 almost assuredly is going to get overdrafted. Jackson Dart, he has already planted his flag in that quarterback 3 designation. Just becomes, is that going to end up being latter half of the first round? Is that going to be top of the second? Where does he end up going? But yeah, that's why you see his stock continuing to rise.
He has said that he likes to and wants to model his game after Jalen Hurts. I will say that you have comped him to Gardner Minshew and Thor. I'm trying to be nice here. Very big difference between a Gardner Minshew type and a Jalen Hurts type. So is there a happy medium? Like when you comp him to Gardner Minshew, it might be tough for people to hear that and think anything nice. But why do you comp him that way?
Well, as far as the players, the guys that they comp themselves, it's like know thyself, right? Like, it's like a lot of times they'll just list off their favorite player. It seems like the Jalen Hurts thing, he is stealing that one from his previous competition for QB3. Jaylen Milroe, his hero, and now his friend and his mentor is Jalen Hurts. So that was kind of interesting hearing Jackson Dart say that, but yeah, I don't see many similarities between the games of Jalen Hurts and Jackson Dart.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything in between that we were missing, Thor. But let's go to, let's talk about Jaylen Milroe because
let's talk about it.
Like to me, Thor, when I look at all of this, it's probably been the most disappointing out of everyone that you were excited that you told everyone, keep an eye on this guy's draft stock could really rise in the next few weeks, starting with the Senior Bowl. And at the Senior Bowl, it wasn't good. And now coming into the Combine, it just feels like it's just been such a letdown with Jaylen Milroe.
His process is starting to confuse me. You had the really poor Senior Bowl. You have to come out here at the Combine and not just throw, right? But you have to go out and athletically test. He is a freak of an athlete, Jaylen Milroe. We saw him, running around in college. He's the bigger package, 220 plus pounds, and he's got wheels. He was out running defensive backs at times at Alabama. I do not understand why Jaylen Milroe is not out there testing athletically. I don't get it. You saw what happened to Anthony Richardson a couple processes ago. Mm-hmm. That's the one we always bring up. The process or two before that, when Malik Willis came out, that gave you the example of what not to do. Malik Willis, and Malik Willis actually had a good Senior Bowl, unlike Jaylen Milroe. But Malik Willis then came to the Combine, a guy with a big arm, super duper athletic. And for whatever reason, Malik Willis decided not to test. That was a terrible quarterback class. As you recall, the only quarterback that we had in round 1 was Kenny Pickett that year. Would the narrative have gone different for Malik Willis had he gone out there and tested and tested as an amazing athlete? I'm going to have the same question here about Jaylen Milroe. I just don't understand not testing if you're the kind of athlete that he is. This is turning into a confusing pre-draft process. And Kendall, to your point, was like with Milroe, coming into the draft process, you look at him with the throwing stats and the polish as now he's not polished as a passer. He certainly remains raw, but he was better objectively, and it wasn't particularly close as a thrower in the SEC than Anthony Richardson. And so it was like, man, if Milroe goes out and has the same kind of pre-draft process that Richardson did, he should be able to catapult there into the top half of the first round. But things have gone the opposite direction, and now including decisions. So, I'm curious to see what he ends up doing at Alabama's Pro Day, but not a good pre-draft process for Jaylen Milroe. And now you're falling probably to the latter half of day 2 or maybe even the top of day 3.
That's disappointing. I will say, I don't know how much this matters, Thor, and that's kind of why I want to ask you, is that the hand size. I know you had talked about the hand size before and how it wasn't very good, and then now all of a sudden it looks like his hand size was approximately like a half inch longer, Thor. Does that matter to you? Is that good news? Is that something that can help? I just kind of want to know about that for you.
Yeah, last night we talked about the first of seeing the dude run a 40 in a hoodie, and James Pierce ended up, running an awesome 40. This is a first for me too, Kendall.
Okay.
You remember a couple processes ago with Kenny Pickett when he went to the Senior Bowl, it became the big deal of, he had the small hands that smell like cabbage and all that stuff. Then a month later at the Combine, I believe Kenny Pickett's hands, they grew by 1/8 of an inch, which then became like a storyline. How did Jaylen Milroe's hands grow, 5 times that, what Kenny Pickett's did? I've never seen that before. I'm curious about an explanation. There is no hand stretching exercises that can make your hand that much bigger in 1 month. So I don't know. I don't know if we had a bad measure at the Senior Bowl or if we got an inflation today. Confusing pre-draft process continues to be confusing.
Just even more confusing. It's fine. Just add it to the list, Thor, and just be like, what is going on with Jaylen Milroe, unfortunately. I do want to ask you about Tyler, I believe it's Show, right?
Shuck.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Tyler Shuck for the Cardinals. Just because he's testing right now, it looks like his second run, 4.64, was even faster than his first one. I know. I've been seeing a little bit of comps to maybe a 2025 Bo Nix. I just kind of want to know where he's at in your rankings going into this.
No, he's lower than that. You know, for me, I am around 9, 10. I have him at QB 9. Okay. I know that there's people who are higher on him, and you think about the high 4-star, low 5-star type pedigree, goes to Oregon. You know, he was considered the next Justin Herbert. We talked about that. And then where, you know, the path that Shuck went on after that, he was sort of pushed out of Eugene. Then he went to Texas Tech. Then it was one season-ending injury after another. He didn't end up breaking out in college until his 7th season. So you have a 1-year breakout player here who was injured for most of his career. The physical tools, that's why he is shining and why he is rising on other people's boards. I just see a guy at an elevated age who has the durability concerns, who, again, did not excel in college until his 7th season. And by the way, for a super underrated quarterback whisperer in Jeff Brom, who has sent several quarterbacks to the NFL despite not having a guy previously to the pedigree of Tyler Shuck. I think Tyler Shuck is a long-term backup. And I think that's the way that you end up inoculating him from those durability concerns. That's where it's at for me. That's where I cap it. I do not see the ceiling here of a long-time NFL starter.
Tyler Shuck, though, like I said, again, he was just testing, so I wanted to ask you 4.64, even faster on his second run. So that was just something to look at there.
He's a good athlete, that kid, for sure.
No kidding.
Or that man, I should say. He's on the older side.
Just throwing strays is incredible. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Biggest quarterback riser or faller for you? I see as a riser, though, Brady Cook, quarterback out of Missouri. What did you see from him that made him kind of your riser for today?
Man, Brady Cook, I couldn't believe how he tested. The 4.59, the 1.53 10-yard split are both high level for a quarter. The 37-inch vertical. You know, we were expecting an SEC quarterback to test very well athletically today. I did not put my money on Brady Cook. So Brady Cook, you're a guy who, you know, is on the outside looking in of the draftable range heading into this event. You know, we get 12, 13, 14 quarterbacks drafted. You got a shot to hear your name called there at the end of day 3. And doing something like this, you sort of begin to make your case as far as that goes. Brady Cook, prior to this past season, in 2023, he looked draftable-ish, right? Like, okay, this guy's going to come back and then, you know, he'll get a draftable grade. After that, last year he didn't play well and he was injured. He was in and out of the lineup. He tried to play through some nagging things. Did not acquit himself as well on the field, but this today, making a statement like this about your athletic profile, I think he's got a shot to get drafted again.
And running, if people don't know, right, running was a part of his game in college. He scored, I believe it was 20 rushing touchdowns at his time there. So he's got a little bit of element in that game as well.
For sure. Yeah. And you test here as a high end athlete for the quarterback position in the NFL. Again, you're just making the case, right? And this really helped a guy whose stock had fallen to the point where, you know, I don't know if he was draftable on too many boards out there heading into this event. Maybe now you move over some of these other guys down there, you know, in the Hunter Deckers, the Seth Hennigans, the Elgersmas, the Graham Mertzes, and Max Brosmers. Maybe you end up moving up to the top of that group, and then you're going to hear your name called.
Any other quarterbacks, Thor, before we get into the second part of this that you want to either mention, a riser, a follower, or someone that you just saw something and you want to get off your chest here?
I just thought it was funny that the crowd was cheering for Will Howard and then that they were booing for Will Howard. You know, it was like we had the contingency from the Midwest but then the Michigan fans there. So that was cool to see.
I like that. All right. Before we continue on, we are going to break down the running backs, but let's hear from our friends over at DraftKings first. Who's scoring big in the NBA this season? You are with all new ways to get in on the action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. From monster slams to dishing the rock to cleaning the glass, get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of the NBA player props. Here's something special for first timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using code FANTASYLIFE. The crown is yours. All right, Thor, continuing on here. Let's get into the running backs here, and appreciate again everyone in the chat. We see you guys here. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us on I believe it's Saturday. Yeah, Saturday all day. Not participating, Ashton Jeanty. I know we talked about this with Cam Ward. We talked about this with Shedeur Sanders. Almost Thor feels the same for Ashton Jeanty, where when you look at him, it feels like there's not much to prove. So we kind of knew that this was going to happen. But for you, is he locked in as a top 10 pick in the upcoming draft?
He's locked in as a top 10 prospect, and we'll have to end up seeing, where he ends up going. The latest, as we talked about, is going to be 12, I think, to the Cowboys. But yeah, Ashton Jeanty, maybe he ends up testing at Boise State's pro day. I don't think he needs to. Yeah, we have seen enough on his tape. So yeah, not a surprise, and we might not see him test this process.
And I see a note that the Raiders did talk to him. Could you see him? I mean, would it be crazy to see him go as high as 6th in this draft? Would that surprise you at all?
I mean, yes and no. It would make sense with Pete Carroll, and they have an obvious need at the running back position. It's a team that has some other needs as well, and then a potentially historically stacked running back class. If I'm the Raiders, I don't know if I'm taking the top dude at 6, right? I think you're too far away to, it's like a baseball team that's like a last place team that is going to pay $20 million a year to a closer, right? That's Ashton Jeanty's going to be one of the better closers that you think about that. Ought to be going to a team that's closer. Dallas would more sort of fit that, or even theoretically the Bears, with Ben Johnson.
Well, you're just saying that because Matt Swing, our producer, is producing this. So I see what you're doing here, and I just want to acknowledge it. Before we move on from Ashton Jeanty to these other running backs, can you just your breakdown of him? I know that you've said before you believe he is a better running back prospect coming in than Bijan Robinson. Who's your favorite comp for Ashton Jeanty right now?
LaDainian Tomlinson.
Nice.
I just think that there's so many similarities there. And with Jeanty, you're talking about an all-time tackle breaker, one of the best that we've ever seen. The contact balance on that kid is absolutely ridiculous, and people just slide off of him, and he just keeps going forward. The leg drive is absolutely incredible, and then you get the receiving utility as well with him. This was a kid who in high school took over for Marvin Mims Jr. as the slot receiver on his team as a junior, then moved back to running back as a senior. But this is a guy who can run routes out of the slot, certainly do it out of the backfield. 2023 is when we got to see Jeanty, the value he can provide as a receiver. He was absolutely incredible in 2023 at that. This past year, they funneled all the touches into his rushing ledger, I believe, in an attempt to try to break Barry Sanders's all-time FBS single-season rushing record. But we know that Jeanty can catch and just a dynamic weapon.
We'll see what he does at his pro day again. If you didn't know, but he is not participating in any of those drills today, but still fun to kind of break him down. And honestly, Thor, just fun to break down this running back class with you, because you've said how stacked it is. You kind of just mentioned that before here too, but generally this class was fast. When you look at it at their combine times in 2025, their average 40-yard dash time was 4.48. Just to compare that to 2024, it was 4.52. 2023 was 4.51. So this class is fast.
It's fast. And we talked about how good this class is overall, but you got to see the athleticism out there today on the field at Lucas Oil Stadium. You're talking about the speed. We also had the speedier, bigger backs, the amount of backs that were breaking, the 4.5 mark at above the 210 pounds. You can see it in the metrics, why this class is considered as good as it is. And after sort of, you have Jeanty in the top tier, and we talked about you know, whether you want to call it a second tier or second and third tier, you know, sort of the you know, with the Ohio State kids, Hampton, all that sort of stuff. There's a big quagmire, a dude sort of after that. And so there's going to be a jockeying for position all pre-draft process. And today was huge in that regard, trying to sort through the order that these guys go, you know, starting latter half of day 2 and then all of day 3. So the jockeying for position, and I think we got some answers today as far as the athletic testing goes. And we had some guys who really opened some eyes.
Let's start with Omarian Hampton, running back out of North Carolina here. And Thor, when I saw some of his stats here, like, first of all, 6 foot, 221 right now. And you saw a 4.47 from him. His vertical was good. His broad jump was good too. So is he, for you, from what you've seen at the combine so far, is he the RB2 in this class?
He's not going to be on my board. He might get to RB3 on my board for the NFL. Yeah, I believe he's going to be the second running back taken. I just, you know, the things that I value, just the slightest bit lower on him, but he showed today, I mean, why, you know, people like him and what you saw over the 3 years at UNC. I call him a bullet train in that physical package, how fast he goes north-south. You have the acceleration and you have high-end wheels at that size. And we knew that was going to be the case. I mean, that's just what he is. But running the 4.46 at that size with the 10-yard split that he had, very impressive day for Omarian Hampton. And yeah, he is almost assuredly going to be the running back 2 in April.
What about his board. What about his game? Do you not like as much as some of the other guys we're going to be talking about? What stands out in a negative way to you?
It's going to be super nitpicky, especially after the day that he just had. But as a receiver, you know, he has the good receiving stats, but what he does, it's check down, swings, screens. He does not run routes beyond the line of scrimmage. And then he is that straight ahead sort of bullet train kind of a thing. There's a little bit of stiffness in the hips. Now, again, this is nitpicky because that guy wins with power, speed, and then the conversion of both of those things, the speed to power conversion. You're talking about the straight ahead kind of a deal. But yeah, he takes a lot of contact. Now, you know, it sounds like I'm nitpicking him. I definitely am, admittedly, but I do comp him to Deuce McAllister. I am a big fan of Omarian Hampton's game. But yeah, the stuff that we saw today was expected. I mean, we've expected that kid to run in the mid 4.4s going back multiple years. So yeah, he went out there and proved it.
Thor, if anyone can be nitpicky about these guys, it can be you in your process and how long that you've been watching these guys. So we trust you on that. Do not worry about it. Let's go over to these Ohio State running backs. And I kind of want to couple them together and then you can pick which one you liked the most. But how did you got Travion Henderson and then you've got Quinshon Judkins, again, 2 running backs out of Ohio State. How did they do today?
Well, I got to start with Quinshon Judkins, who had an eye-opening day. Quinshon Judkins yesterday at his podium session, you know, we had asked him, you know, if he was planning to run. And then I got to ask him, are you looking forward to trying to dispel long speed concerns? And he grinned, and I believe the exact quote was most definitely. And he did. Judkins showed that he was more athletic, I think, than we thought. He broke the 4.5 flat number. He got to 4.48. That was really strong. And then the jumps with him as well. His RAS was above the 95th percentile. So Quinshon Judkins, we all love the instincts, the feel that he has, the vision, stuff like that on the field as a runner. Maybe he did not get enough credit for being the athlete that he is. Coming into this, it was all Travion Henderson, the athlete. We talked about Travion Henderson, the athlete, plenty. Quinshon Judkins, now you put those two guys right up next to each other. They're not the same kinds of athletes, but qualitatively, Quinshon Judkins can make an argument against a lot of different backs in this class. And certainly his over the past 3 years, you look at his output, he can put that up there with anybody. So Quinshon Judkins, I think, stamped his way as a top 5 back. We'll see. We'll end up seeing how high he gets with that. But that's a guy who is going to go in round 2, the last Friday night of April.
And then Travion Henderson, right? He also had a terrific showing when you look at all the stats that he put up. He ran in the low 4.4s. He ran 4.43 over there, had a 10'8" broad jump, and everything, like top 5 results in measurements there. So it was a good day overall for him as well.
It was a strong day. Yeah, I mean, he at the sports books, they had set his 40 at 4.4 flat. It had even come down to 4.39. So some people might be, sort of nitpicky, disappointed as far as that goes. But this is around where he ought to have run. He hit it down the fairway as far as that goes. And then his jumps were very good as well. This guy is a premium athlete, and he went out and proved that he was a premium athlete today.
Can we talk about Cam Skattebo?
Yeah, we can.
Can we do that?
Are you ready?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, kind of. I'm kind of ready because Cam Skattebo, running back out of Arizona State, everyone knows. We have a deal. If he goes to the Minnesota Vikings, I'm gonna be the first one ordering that jersey. I went to Arizona State, so forks up there. We can talk about the vertical. I mean, that was phenomenal. Thor didn't run the 40 in a group of running backs that we just talked about how fast this group is. So overall, what are your thoughts so far on his pre-draft process and the decisions that he's been making?
Well, he knew he was going to ace one test, and that's the test that he took. I think people, and that's good, right?
Yeah.
At 39.5, the vertical was great. People are still going to be wondering about the speed and why didn't he end up running. We're going to see that almost assuredly at his pro day, along hopefully with the other gamut of tests. But yeah, it's sort of interesting. He just picked the one test, but again, he did ace that test. I was happy he at least got out there. The previous couple of days have been a bit confusing as far as Skattebo went. Like, we weren't sure if he was going to test. He didn't come out for his podium session for a while. Then someone came out and was like, oh yeah, he's running late. And then they put someone else at I think they put film off his podium session. Then Skattebo ends up coming out like 25 minutes late. And then, said he wasn't going to run. He ends up doing the vertical. Some of that stuff was kind of confusing. We've also heard some things down here about his work ethic that maybe is not the most flattering. So surprisingly so. And so, like, with all those things together, we were hoping to see him run, right? I mean, like the tape last year, Kendall, as you know, very, very good. And in this running back class where you had everyone going out there and putting on the show today, not to see more of Cam Skattebo was disappointing, but on the other hand, I always make the case, for instance, last night, Kendall, remember when we were talking about the Texas tight end and how he had gone out there and it was like, why did that kid test? And he probably shouldn't have if he knew he was going to test around where he did. Maybe Cam knew, man, I'm going to run around that 4.6 flat number and surrounded by all these Ferrari backs in this incredibly deep class. By comparison, I won't equip myself well in that test. So maybe that was the discussion that went on with Cam and his representatives. We don't know. That's the stuff that's behind closed doors. But again, the one test he did very well at it. So, it's sort of you still have questions about his evaluation as far as the athletic profile goes, and as far as a couple of those different things we're hearing, but we still have time to track down some of those answers.
And Thor, I'm curious for you because you've been doing this for a long time and you know these processes and stuff. How much should people start listening and be a little bit concerned about, when we go to the combine and then there begins to be work ethic questions, not just for Cam Skattebo, but just in your years of doing this, when you start to hear that, how much does that knock guys down a little bit? How much do you listen to those?
It's context specific. Every guy, like where you end up valuing them and ranking them, it's just an amalgamation of all the data that you collected and then how you end up parsing that. So it's just a piece of the picture. There's guys who came into the NFL, and I'm not, Skattebo does not have, character concerns. So I'm not saying it like that, but like there's been guys who have been forwarded as having character concerns and, this guy's a red flag and all this sort of stuff. And in the NFL, they were great. Micah Parsons is an example that I use for this a lot, where, his whole process, it was like, red flag with the character and yada, yada. And he's been great in the NFL. You also have guys that, you have some of these whispers about, and it's if you're just going to ignore them, you're not doing your job either. And I can give an example of this from my career. I was hearing in the pre-draft process negative stuff about Josh Rosen and how much he wanted to commit. He's never going to be the first guy in the building. Sometimes he's the first one out. He has his own ideas about the play calling. You know, he's not always deferring to the coach. Is he going to be And it was like, well, you know, he did fine in college, and for my exposure to him, you know, which was not certainly as deep as, you know, where some of these things were coming from, I ended up more or less overlooking that with Josh Rosen's evaluation. I wish I hadn't. So it's, you know, with all this different stuff, you just take the data in and you see where you end up with it. But yeah, it's just something that we're taking in, and we got a couple more months, like I said, to track down some of these answers.
Don't worry, Cam. We're rooting for you. I'm rooting for you. I need a Minnesota Vikings jersey really bad in this house. So
yeah.
I'm ready for it. Let's get into now some running back risers and followers. I want to start with a positive here and a riser that you've seen, the running back out of Virginia Tech, Bhayshul Tuten, running back again out of Virginia Tech. What have you seen? By the way, Thor, not a small running back by any means. What have you seen from him?
Oh, we call him King Tuten down here in Indianapolis. Now, this was King Tuten's day. He's sitting up there on the throne. We knew that this kid was a home run hitter, and the athleticism. He went out. I think it tested even better than we were anticipating, even though we were anticipating good testing. Over the 200 pounds, you know, 206. He runs the 4.32. The jumps were all there. So best in class for the running backs with the 40, best in class with the vertical jump. He was the only running back to get over 40 inches. He had 40 and a half, was way up there with the broad jump as well. Finished tied for second in that. Giddens was the only guy who got to 11, but three dudes tied 2 inches shorter than that. And Tuten being one of them. Tuten's he is the most fascinating evaluation. Yeah, you talk about like taking in all the information, stuff like that. Like that kid's game is really interesting. He is juiced up with electricity, as you saw out there today at Lucas Oil, you know, on the field down there. And he is a pure home run hitter. I mean, that guy is sitting dead red and swinging for the fences all the time, and he hits his fair share of dingers. You're not going to get out of a game against Bhayshul Tuten without him ripping off some form of explosive play. But on the other side of it, you have the consistency issues for a quarter at a time. When he is not hitting that dinger, you can have the shorter gains, you have negative gain. He fumbles a little bit too much. But the athletic package here and what we have seen of that big play propensity from him, it makes him exciting. Can we improve the ball security at the next level? Can we fine tune that thing with Bhayshul Tuten where he wants it, the dinger wants it, the dinger? Can we fine tune the thing where to recognize early on in concepts of like, yeah, that's not going to be available. Let's just take the 3 yards here, the 2 yards here, right? That's the stuff with Bhayshul Tuten that you know, going forward that the NFL is going to be considering with him. But it's a very, very interesting ball of clay. And after today, that kid's skyrocketing up boards. You know, when you have an evaluation where you have sort of the disparate parts like that, you're looking during your pre-draft process just to answer as many questions for the NFL as you can, check those boxes, because then the evaluators, instead of sort of looking at some of these questions and sort of projecting them forward in a negative light, it ends up going the other way, and you get some things explained away from you. Maybe the running back coach, hey, I can fix that ball security issue with that kid, and I think I can improve his vision and the instincts a little bit as far as, you know, when are we going to try to break off the explosive play? When are we just going to take what we can get? That's the stuff with Tuten there, but you're going to have a lot of people in the NFL banging the table for that kid.
That's what I was going to say. It seems like, why has no one been talking about Tuten? But then you come into these things, Thor, like the combine, and you say, well, this is exactly what he needs to be doing to get a little bit more conversations going around him, especially with these numbers. First in the 40-yard dash, first in the 10-yard split, first in vertical jump, tied for second in the broad jump. Those numbers, Thor, are insane for Tuten.
Yeah, they are. And, you know, you mentioned the size with Bhayshul Tuten. He comes in here, you know, at the 206. 5'9", and interestingly enough, the scores that he put out there on the field today, very equivalent to Devin Achane, but Devin Achane was 15, 20 pounds, I think 20 pounds lighter during his testing than Bhayshul Tuten was. So just to give you an idea of the explosion and in a bigger package, it's very, very interesting prospect.
Let's go over to another riser talking through the running backs here. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us, hanging out in the chat. We're reading any questions you have, throw them our way too, and I'll try and get to them for Thor. Let's go over to DJ Giddens, running back out of Kansas State. When you look at his numbers, Thor, 40-yard dash, he came in right at 4.43, which is tied for 7th. He was 7th with the 10-yard split. Vertical jump tied for 2nd. Broad jump tied for 2nd as well. What have you seen from him that has made him a riser for you?
Yeah, huge day for DJ Giddens. You know, just like Tuten, DJ Giddens, this was the start of his pre-draft process. You know, we didn't get to see him before, and for him to go out and test like he did, you're talking about you can make an argument to be a top 10 back in this class as DJ Giddens. That I believe it was either 98th or 99th percentile athlete. The size adjusted when you go with that. This is a threshold size back. He's a hair over 6 feet, 212 pounds. That's right at that threshold size. And then you run the 4.43. You have the 1.53 10-yard split. Both those way above average just for the class, not even size adjusting it. That 39.5-inch vertical finished 2nd in that. Just an incredible day for DJ Giddens. DJ Giddens was more or less, he handled the heavy workload at Kansas State. Last year they had brought in Dylan Edwards. He got some of the passing work. DJ Giddens, really, really talented runner. And obviously now you see the athletic package that he has. The question with him, he doesn't do as much in the passing game, or he hasn't to this point. But I think you're looking at him as a really, really good early down back and a guy who's going to be one of the best 32 of those on planet Earth. So I think you're looking at an early down back in the NFL. Just like last year at Kansas State when they made that effort in the offseason to go out and get Dylan Edwards when he became available on the transfer portal market after he left Colorado. Dylan Edwards ends up going home. Dylan Edwards is a receiving back. Just like that, DJ Giddens needs to be paired at the next level with a passing down back. But I think he's going to bring a lot of value to an NFL offense if they can find that situation for him.
Were you, with DJ Giddens, surprised by this performance? Is this someone where we talk about him being a riser? Is that a surprise to you in the more explosion drills? I know that there's been questions kind of about his like sustainable speeds and what he's able to do there, but was he kind of a surprise that he was a riser today?
I thought he was a solid athlete, a strong athlete. I did not believe that he was this good of an athlete. I mean, this is elite athletic testing that you're doing today. You get yourself up there into lofty air. I didn't think that he was that caliber of an athlete at that physical package. But this is a guy that the NFL likes. The 2 scouting services that the NFL uses over the summer, one of them gave Giddens a round 3 grade. The other one gave him round 3 to 4. You had the strong season there at Kansas State. You go out and you test like this. DJ Giddens is absolutely going on day 2. I think almost assuredly in round 3. But again, you're starting to make an argument here. We talked about this at the top with this running back class, how deep it is. And the jockeying for position after those sort of consensus 5 guys or so. DJ Giddens now, you're moving up closer to the top of that group after those top consensus guys. So very big day for DJ Giddens.
I like that. And again, appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Make sure you're giving Thor a follow over there at Thor KU. Boots on the ground, live in Indianapolis. So he's giving the best updates that you can get over there. Now let's go over to some running back unfortunate fallers here, Thor, that you've seen. Let's start with Ollie. I think Ollie Gordon's the place that we have to start here, running back out of Oklahoma State. When you look at some of the times, when you look at the measurements, 40-yard dash, 23rd, second to last in that running back group. You've got the 10-yard split, 22nd, tied for 19th in the vertical jump, tied for 13th in the broad jump. So, just overall, Thor, was it just not a good day, not a good showing for him?
Yeah, I just did my whole spiel about Skattebo and I wish he would have run and stuff like that. And this is the example going the other way. Maybe Ollie Gordon, in comparison to all these Ferrari backs that were out there, maybe his representative should have said, Ollie, let's just save this for Stillwater, right? Because we see all these running, they were just flying down the track, and then they brought the sundial out to time Ollie Gordon. But Ollie Gordon, the 4.61 was disappointing. The 1.6 10-yard split was highly disappointing for him. And you mentioned the jumps, the non-explosive jumps there. Ollie Gordon in 2023 was statistically one of the best running backs in the nation. He was up for all the awards, etc. Last year, his counting stats essentially got cleaved in half. He wasn't nearly as effective. And then you come out here, like at the Senior Bowl, he was sort of nondescript. And then you come out here and you don't test very well. That's a guy, it's going to start going the other way. I think probably if you looked at most of the media boards out there in advance of this, I think Ollie Gordon would have been ahead of DJ Giddens on quite a bit of them. Coming out of here, that will not be the case anymore.
Was that like RB 10, day 2, day 3? Is that where he would have been coming into this?
He's right around there, yeah. Like
okay.
on my running back ranks coming into the event, I had him tentatively at 11th.
Okay.
I think the consensus, he's maybe more like 8, 9, something like that. But and to give him the benefit of the doubt, like Ollie Gordon, there was this thought that he had speed because in 2023 he had a whole bunch of explosive runs, but we always knew that guy does not have burst, right? I mean, he's the long strider guy who needs a runway to get up to top speed. In 2023, the supporting cast was way better at Oklahoma State. And so, like the defenses, Oklahoma State, they do this spread system. They do a lot of sideline to sideline passing. So you have to have the defensive backs out there. You thin out the box a little bit. In 2023, that's what Ollie Gordon was running against these thinner boxes. You have better offensive line play. This past season, when teams realized Oklahoma State couldn't throw, they were packing boxes against a bad offensive line and ganging up on Ollie Gordon. In the NFL, we talked about it this is sort of a poor man's Najee Harris type profile. And yeah, I mean, that's sort of what it is. You're going to get the receiving utility out of him and he can run it between the tackles. But yeah, the explosive runs you saw in 2023, that was circumstantial at the collegiate level. You're not going to see Ollie Gordon breaking off explosive runs again on a football field. He needs to be the grinder, the short yardage between the tackles guy for his NFL offense, and then he can give you efficiency as a receiver because he at least will secure the ball and advance it, right? He'll it's sort of the get what's blocked for you, sort of the same case with him as a receiver. So that's what you're getting with him. He's going to be a part of a committee in the NFL. But if Ollie Gordon came in here hoping to make the point to the NFL of I could be a bell cow starter, definitely didn't do that. And I think those odds are nullified now.
Let's go to another faller, and then we're going to start talking about wide receivers and risers, fallers for them. But a faller, someone that you actually liked coming into this process, Thor, before going out there was Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. So curious with him, if you're going to move him down. He had a slow, unfortunate 40-yard dash, 4.57, tied for 19th. You see the 10-yard split there was tied for 23rd, which was last, by the way. And then vertical jump didn't do the broad jump either. So what did you, I guess, not see from him today? What was kind of concerning for you?
Oh, poor day of testing for Caleb Johnson. And the 40, we were expecting better for sure. Yeah. I mean, the on-field metrics, the real analytics, the GPS system that Iowa uses, they both had him plenty faster than this, the high-end speed, right? And we 90th percentile breakaway rate. He was able to access that speed. Once he gets up to full speed, Caleb Johnson at that size can fly. But you saw the bugaboo with his sort of athletic profile in that 10-yard split with the 1.62, which was the worst here, even a little bit worse than Ollie. Well, it's tied for the worst with Jordan. Jordan James. But with Caleb Johnson, I'll give him a couple contextual benefits of the doubt. A couple of guys that he has been comped to, Arian Foster and Le'Veon Bell, they didn't run well at the combine either. It's guys with the vision and with the instincts for the zone running system, and that's what Caleb Johnson has at the bigger size. And the way that those guys run, I mean, like, how was Le'Veon Bell able to be as good as he was in the NFL without high-end speed? Was the patience, the instincts, the thing of picking down the line on the stretch zone concepts and forcing the linebackers to declare what door they're going to go in before he does. And then all of a sudden you go through the empty one and the linebackers are stuck in a quagmire of human bodies. That's the stuff that Johnson's good at, and you get the runway in so doing. If you are able to sufficiently manipulate those second-level defenders, you will get the runway through a couple steps to be able to build up to that speed that Caleb Johnson has. I love his instincts in the zone system. The inside zone, he was tremendous. He was arguably the best inside zone runner in college football this year. And then he showed he could do the mid zone as well. The high end speed, not quite as important for a runner like that, but I think he runs faster when he gets to that top speed on the football field than we ended up seeing today. Could he, could I ding him a little bit? Maybe, but he's not going to be moving far for me, based on that. I still love his game.
All right, before we get into the wide receivers, I do have to just, it has nothing to do with us right now, except maybe a little bit for the pre-draft process, but I will say Debo Samuel, Thor, is going to the Commanders. So just to throw that out there. I know that, again, that has nothing to do with the combine or us right now, but NFL news.
What was the transaction?
For draft pick compensation per Ian Rappaport. So I don't know anything
That's
yet.
interesting. Well, okay.
I mean, the fit, though. I do like that for him.
You have to. And they were chasing him for a while. I don't know if I'm reporting this, but like something I heard down here, why I was curious about the trade package back was them team. I mean, they've been talking for a while now, but it heated up right away when we got down here, them meeting with each other and whatnot. Jonathan Allen had been discussed a little bit there. Would he be involved in it? I think the money probably got too complicated there. But it's interesting that, that they end up consummating that trade for draft capital.
Fifth rounder going to San Francisco.
Wow. Yeah. No, not so much. San Francisco, they wanted to get rid of Debo, obviously. Yeah. I guess the only other thing I can add is they're interested in Jonathan Allen too, but apparently it did not fit up, for that transaction.
That's huge. I thought they were going to get a fourth and a maybe fifth for 2027. A little bit more, but you knew that Debo wanted to be on the move. They already said John Lynch was very vocal about saying that we are going to try and get that done for him. So new home with Washington for Debo Samuel there. So that's a little bit of fun news going into it. Let's talk. Speaking of wide receivers, not named Debo Samuel though. Let's talk through these guys here, Thor. Yeah. Really quickly, the guys not participating: Travis Hunter, which I think we were pretty familiar that he wasn't going to be going. And then Tetairoa McMillan. And I saw in the chat someone kind of ask a question or have a comment saying that maybe it wasn't good that Tetairoa McMillan wasn't going to be participating. But what are your thoughts on both of these guys not seeing them?
Yeah, Travis Hunter, he shouldn't do anything this process, right? I mean, so I would expect him to have the Marvin Harrison Jr. type process that we saw last spring, and that's fine. Travis Hunter he absolutely could be the first overall pick. I wouldn't argue with that at all. As far as McMillan, I would like to see him do some testing at the Pro Day, but he's Drake London. I mean, it's the pointing Spider-Man. He is Drake London. So the same things that you like about Drake London, that's what you get from McMillan, and some of the same things that London got nitpicked for during his pre-draft process, that London did, McMillan's getting nitpicked for in this one. But that's what it is. You're drafting Drake London. So, and I expect him to go just about in the same range. That sort of 8 to 11 or 12 kind of a range is where I expect Tet to come off the board. So I think he'd be a good fit for Carolina and a good fit for a couple of those other teams that are picking around there. But not the biggest deal here, but we do need to see him running at the Pro Day.
All right, let's go over to more wide receivers that we're talking about here. Let's start with Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas here. Was he, I see maybe the biggest winner of the day. You got a 4.29 40, which is first among wide receivers, and then 10-yard split. It was also tied for first, 1.49 seconds. What did you see from him? How far has he risen?
Yeah, 1,000%. He's the biggest riser today. This was stunning, Matt. We got the 4.3 flat initially, and then they ended up toggling it down to 4.29. But it was just wild. The day before, you had two up at the podium sessions. You had two Texas Longhorns that were promising we are going to break another Texas Longhorns NFL Combine record in the 40. Those two Texas Longhorns were not Matthew Golden. It was Isaiah Bond and Jaden Blue. And Matthew Golden goes out and licks both of them. Both those guys should have kept their mouth shut. And Matthew Golden, he just sneaks into the event and then goes and lights it up today. The fastest wide receiver that we had out there. I think only the second guy at the event so far, that has cracked 4.3. Him and Maxwell Harrison. And So yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff for Matthew Golden. And, Matthew Golden that transferred up to Texas, so he was never a collegiate teammate of Xavier Worthy, could be in the NFL, by the way. The Chiefs have quite a few free agent wide receivers, although after today, the Chiefs probably felt better about the idea that a guy like Matthew Golden could get to them prior to today. But yeah, with those athletic tests, you're moving up. And especially, we just talked about sort of the running back environment, the class, that we have this season, and then, how that sort of manifested on the field today with all these guys jockeying for position. With the wide receiver class, it's way down, right? And so the opportunity is, it's less a quagmire and something where it's like kind of shoots and ladders, where a day like this with Golden, you can really jump up. Right. I mean, this is a guy it's been a meteoric rise, this pre-draft process, starting at the end of the fall when Quinn Ewers finally started throwing him the ball enough. They finally realized, Isaiah Bond is not Xavier Worthy. That's, they had gotten Isaiah Bond from Alabama to play the Xavier Worthy role. And Isaiah Bond was obviously a big disappointment during the season. It was a big disappointment today as well. But then Matthew Golden ends up, this latter half of the college football playoff run that Texas made, becoming a go-to receiver there. And, it's interesting. I was talking to a bunch of people down there too. We didn't see that coming of Matthew Golden, certainly getting into the 4.2s, low 4.3, we did not see it coming. On his film, what Matthew Golden is really good at, and maybe this is why we didn't see it on his film, it's the thing of toggling the speeds. He's the jet ski guy, right? He'll throttle up, throttle down. The deceleration, the stop on the dime, dude, right? And then he can cut it out. I like his route running and his ability. And now we see, sort of the breadth of that speed package, right? Of how far you can decelerate. But that's what it is, right? It's forward, back, with the toggling of the speeds. And that is how he is able to create separation. There's an explosive element, with his athletic profile that we haven't seen quite as much. Now he is, a little bit on the smaller side of 5'10", 191, but you're talking about a guy with world-class speed. So huge stock up for Matthew Golden in this bad receiver class. He just punched his ticket into Thursday night at the end of April. He will be a first-round pick. And you look at this receiver, Matthew Golden easily could be wide receiver too. Luther Burden didn't have a bad day today. I know we're going to talk about him in a second. Egbuka, is another guy that's there, but you can't put it past Matthew Golden to potentially now make an argument for wide receiver too, but certainly a first round pick either way.
And he had an ankle sprain in January, Thor. So is there, in the back of your mind, is there potential for him to even be faster at his pro day now?
I can't call for that, but certainly he knocked us all out of our seats today. So we'll see. Matthew Golden's got some stuff in store. He's pulling out all the stops and all the surprises here during his pre-draft process.
Yeah, those numbers were crazy. Let's go over. Let's stick with Texas here. Let's go over to Isaiah Bond, who you've been mentioning here. Said he was going to break Xavier Worthy's record. Thor, did that happen?
No. He didn't even come close to it.
No.
Isaiah Bond, first of all, and I said this even before the combine, so this isn't like a after the fact take. This kid should not be in the draft. This kid should have gone back to college. I think his collegiate or the quarterback, I think Quinn Ewers also should have gone back to college, but Isaiah Bond definitely should have. He showed the flashes at Alabama, and again, he left. There was the coaching change, all that sort of stuff. He goes to Texas because they sold him on this idea that you're going to be Xavier Worthy. And the consistency wasn't there. He was nicked up all season. His on-field metrics this year were absolutely terrible. Isaiah Bond had less than 1 yard per route run against man coverage. This is supposed to be a guy who, is just juiced up with athleticism. And then you always talk about the speed with Isaiah Bond. Certainly he couldn't stop talking about it yesterday at his podium session. All these different proclamations that you're making that are sort of in line with what the public believes your speed to be, right? Is he Xavier Worthy, right? Is he, and then, you go out there, I am, and I'm going to run, I'm going to break the record. And then you come and you run the 4.4 flat. Bad look for, or 4.39, I guess that they adjusted it down to officially. Bad luck for Isaiah Bond. It's a raw receiver who last year was terrible on the field. And you were hoping, at least can we call him a world-class athlete heading into the process? And then the wide receiver coach, we can try to polish him a little bit. Not good. Not good for Isaiah Bond. Big time stock down.
Yeah, not good. It's always better to under promise and over deliver, and I guess that's the exact opposite of what he did there today. So a little bit unfortunate for Isaiah Bond. Talking wide receivers from the combine here with Thor Nystrom. Let's go over to Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. When you look at his stats, Thor 40-yard dash 4.41, tied for 11th there, and then his 10-yard split 1.54, which was tied for 27th among wide receivers. What did you see from him?
Luther Burden did what he needed today to stop the fall of his own stock. There have been, whispers about that. And then there was some prominent mock drafts right before here where all of a sudden they weren't listing him as a first round pick. He needed to come in here and test well. And he did. His number at the book was 4.42. He ends up running the 4.41. You see the juice on the field, but you're talking about at 6 foot, 206 pounds. So this is not a tiny guy. He clearly has the wheels. And the tape, you got to go back to 2023, the 2024, because of the aforementioned Brady Cook injury and some of that stuff playing the backups. There was some continuity issues on the offense, and sometimes Burden did not get as involved in the game plan as certainly he was hoping for. But to go out and test like this, you stabilize that stock. And I think, this is a guy who is going to go in the first round. I know that there are some people out there that don't like him as much, probably because they're focusing on his 2024 film. But this isn't a guy where it's the last process. One of the receivers that I was most against consensus on was Malachi Corley. The entire spring, I just kept saying, I've seen this guy before. It's Amari Rodgers. They're in the exact same physical package. They were used the exact same way at the college level. And they're going to be the same player in the NFL. Those were glorified running backs that you had to manufacture the touches for literally right around the line of scrimmage. Burden can go out a bit more than that. He can do more stuff than that. He's not a downfield killer, right? This is a guy doing his work in the intermediate range, but if you hit him on the hands in space, you lead him into space. He is electric with the ball in his hands. So it's the utility is a little bit more than some of those guys who literally cannot run routes. Savion Williams being an example from this class. I like Luther Burden, expect him to be a late first round pick, and he did enough here today in order to, I think, have that end up happening.
And I remember you saying, like, he's done enough too, when you turn on the film, that he was able to kind of show us, like, the flashes for the high level talent that he does have. I feel like that's something that you've said before as well. So while you might look at some of these numbers and think, all right, tied for 11th in the 40 and then tied for 27th in the 10-yard split, not necessarily amazing, but like you said, did just enough at the combine to make it worthwhile. Let's go over to Jaylen Noel, wide receiver out of Iowa State. Kind of curious. I don't, when you look at the 40-yard dash, 4.39, which was tied for 9th again, 10-yard split, 1.51, tied for tied for first, I should say, in the vertical jump here, Thor, and then first in the broad jump. What did you see from Jaylen Noel?
Awesome day for Jaylen Noel. Yeah, and coming off the awesome Senior Bowl, I kind of think Jaylen Noel is going in round 2 of this bad receiver class. The tape that he had at Iowa State was really good. Now he's a pure slot, right? I mean, that's the one caveat here. But as a starting position in the NFL, certainly, and some offenses greatly leverage their slot. And Jaylen Noel is a really, really good one. Khalil Shakir was the name that we were tossing out with him when we were down in Mobile, because we had seen him the couple years before. But Jaylen Noel is a better athlete than that. So, I think that's sort of what you're talking about. Very good day for him testing. And again, the film, the route running of Jaylen Noel and the reliability with the hands, very, very good football player. In some ways was overshadowed in college by Jaden Higgins. Those two guys, they sort of shared the spotlight there. But Jaylen Noel, stock up. And again, coming into this event, I probably would have said more like top half of round 3. I think he's a round 2 pick now.
What are some, not to nitpick him at all, but what are some of the negatives to his game? Why was he kind of lower on some people's boards, and now he has a great day at the combine and we're looking at him now, but what were some of the things that kind of held him back?
Slot confined. I mean, you talk about like the McMillans or some of these other guys. That's pretty much, Egbuka is, I don't know, I wouldn't say slot confined, but he is a slot receiver. But we've seen Egbuka in the big spots and going up against guys that are in the NFL now, going back, a couple different years. Noel coming up from Iowa State, maybe there wasn't quite as much exposure there, and a little bit smaller, at the 5'10", 194 size. But if you draft Jaylen Noel, you are getting a really good starting slot. Perhaps not all pro, but a strong starting slot receiver, certainly for the duration of his rookie contract.
You mentioned his teammate here, so let's go over to Jaden Higgins, wide receiver again out of Iowa State. 40-yard dash time looks like 4.47, tied for 23rd there, Thor. 10-yard split was tied for 15th. He was 6th overall in the vertical jump, and then 7th in the broad jump. Riser, faller, or kind of stock neutral right now for Jaden Higgins?
No, it was a good week for Jaden Higgins, and at that size, testing like that was impressive. He's a hair over 6'4", 214 pounds, tremendous size there, and the frame is really big as well. He's one of the only receivers in this class who got the wings, the 80 plus wingspan. So you have that stuff, and then to test like he did, the jumps were tremendous. The 39 and then the over the 10 foot on the broad, both way above average as far as the numbers we have seen come in so far. And then you mentioned the speed there at that size, running the 4.47. I mean, another guy who ran the 4.47 was LeJontay Wester, who, you stack two LeJontay Westers and you get one Jaden Higgins. So very good athletic testing for Jaden Higgins.
Do you have comps for him or anyone? I've seen a few Christian Watson comps, hopefully without the injury concerns. Is that kind of someone that you would comp him to right now?
I'm going to have to change mine because mine coming into the event was Michael Wilson. But Jaden Higgins, he has more juice than Michael Wilson. So I'm going to have to upgrade his comp.
All right.
Yeah, Higgins tested a bit better than I thought he would today. So hats off to him.
I like that. All right. Biggest wide receiver, risers, followers for you, Thor, or someone that you just kind of want to talk about, you want to mention right now before we wrap up? Anyone else that's on your mind for these wide receivers?
I mean, the biggest riser, of course, is Matthew Golden. The biggest, going sort of the other way, it's disappointing to see Ricky White at the 4.61. It's a guy that I like. UNLV was tremendous as a wide receiver these last several years. I was obviously the go-to guy there in a very fun offense that they run, the go-go offense. And then Ricky White's also a special teams demon, which I had some fun asking him about. He got a big smile on his face. We got to talk about special teams. You were hoping to see better athleticism here. And Ricky White at his podium session was saying that he was going to run in the 4.4s. And it was another one where it's like, nah, the athleticism was closer maybe to where we thought heading in. So that's disappointing. He is a good route runner, and the production spoke for itself at college. But yeah, the athletic profile was not what you were hoping for at Ricky White's size, being as skinny as he is. So that's something he's going to have to overcome during the process, as he goes along. Hopefully he can run better in Las Vegas at their pro day. But the utility you get on special teams from Ricky White sort of embeds a floor there. Of course he's going to get drafted, but any hope that he had of going on Friday night at the end of April, those have been dashed now, and he's going to be a day 3 pick at some point.
A potential faller, Tez Johnson out of Oregon. Is he someone that kind of fell for you today?
Yeah, I mean, he is. And I know that, there was people that they're sort of evoking Tank Dell, and as far as with the 40, because Tez ended up, what was the official kind of, you got 4.51, which is, around where Tank did. But Tank was so sudden with the agility, more sudden than Tez. Tez, at sort of that, is 156 or whatever. Tez is more straightforward or, straight ahead, straight line than Tank. And so for the way that Tez plays, he needed to run faster than Tank. Tez's number at the sports books today was like 4.35 or 4.34. Yeah. Like, I mean, so you come in way over that. I don't like people out there know, if you follow my work for a while, I was a big fan of Tank Dell during his process. I was one of the biggest guys pounding the table for him. It's a bit different for me than Tez, with Tez. Because again, Tank Dell, you just couldn't stay with his footwork. Nobody did in college. He NFL defender. He's a Sauce Gardner, faced him multiple times. Nobody could stay with his feet. But Tez Johnson now, you show with the game that you have at that size, it's going to be a problem getting off the line. And then the straight ahead speed thing where we thought you were going to excel, you did not.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to bring him up. So I might have been a little bit of a faller for some people today. But Thor, we're going to be back tomorrow, breaking breaking everything down like we always will. So we will see you guys same time here tomorrow, a little bit earlier here tomorrow. But make sure
one day.
Yeah. Make sure you give Thor a follow at ThorKU over there on Twitter. And what did you say your 40 time was going to be, Thor? We've got people asking in the chat. I need to know too.
6.3 to 6.4. The audience can say whether they go over or under that number.
There we go. I love it. Again, appreciate everyone hanging out with us on this Saturday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. FantasyLife.com. That's where you can see some of our updates as well. 100% free articles. And while you're there, make sure you go subscribe to that